But something I want to follow up with what you had said earlier is if, one, will there be a Gold Rush Girl 2? And if so, why would it be important for you to live in California while you were writing at least a portion of it?
I have a good imagination in a lot of things. My sense of physical geography is not so great. In other words, if there's a sequel to Gold Rush Girl and they go off into the gold digging territory, I want to see that. I think I mentioned I wrote a book about Venice. No way you can write that book without visiting Venice because it's such a strange place, beautiful place, but very, very unusual. So I like to, if the physical place is unusual, I like to visit it. I like to be there. I don't know what the gold digging territory of California was like. It's probably very different than it was then, but I would need to visit it. When I wrote the Crispin books, the second book in the series takes place in France. Again, somebody had to do the research, so we went to France. Break my heart. Right. But it was wonderful because we went to the area where the story took place, and it's full of medieval castles and moats and things that I could use in the story and did. And I wouldn't have been able to do that unless I had visited. So that's important to me. But it's a funny way. It's a weakness of my writing, but I accept it. And as I say, I have to go to these places, and going to California for a couple of weeks and wandering in the old gold digging areas wouldn't be the worst thing that happened to me, I bet.
Why would that be a weakness?
Well, I want to get it right, you know. Here, I've alluded to I read you a section of a book that takes place in Boston in 1774. Right here on the floor is a map of Boston in 1775. I can follow the story street by street. And Boston is very different than it was then. But I want to know how long it takes to go from here to there. And I like to have maps when I work on books in a specific place. So, and I don't want that to be my imagination. You know, I alluded to, you probably didn't necessarily catch it, but this kid is wandering around on something that's called a long wharf. This was the biggest wharf in Boston, Revolutionary time. It was a third of a mile long, and it went out into the bay. And why is that important? Well, because it's big, it's long. It means you can see things that you might not otherwise. And it's useful to know, to write the story. So it's not just a name, Long Wharf. How long is it? Well, it's a third of a mile long. That's pretty big.
I'm always wondering where the leap of imagination comes in. For example, I've got an author, Mike Mullen. There you go, shout out on the Obvi podcast to Mike Mullen, who wrote a book in which the characters are desperate. They're in the apocalypse, so they have to eat cat food. And Mike was not content with just saying they ate cat food. He actually sat down and ate cat food so they knew he could describe the taste correctly. Yeah. Do you do a lot of that, and where you draw the line of, I have enough information, I can imagine it for the reader?
Trying to think of strange things I've done to write a book. You know, one of the things about doing research, and the fact that I was a librarian for many years and actually taught students how to do research, it's amazing what people have written about. There's almost, you can't think of a topic in which you cannot find a book about. An example. I wrote a book some years ago called City of Orphans. And it deals with the families of immigrants at the end of the 19th century in New York City. great poverty, great hurly-burly life, etc. And there's a point, and this particular family is Danish immigrants. And at one point, there's a moment of sadness for the father, and I want him to sing a song. And I found this was a book, a dissertation. I mean, people write dissertations about the oddest thing. It's almost embarrassing to say what the title of this book was. Songs of Danish Immigrants When They Came to America.
Very explicit. You know what you're getting with that book.
I find this book, I mean, who would think? And I plucked out a sad song, right? And it was given in Danish and English, and so I could put it in the book, but it's nothing I could have invented. I once found a book that I loved it so much that I thought I should write a book about it. I didn't, but it was something called slang, 14th century slang of people who lived on the Thames River in the 14th century, England. It had all this wonderful slang in it, and I thought, I have to write a book with this stuff. It's so incredible. I didn't, but it's nothing when I was writing Crispin, he's running through a forest, and I'm thinking, well, what kind of trees in a medieval English forest? Found the book, Medieval Forests of England. Now, granted that I used to be a librarian, I know how to find this stuff, but I could teach anyone how to do it. But when you find that stuff, I found books on medieval swear words, obviously medieval food, illnesses. It's nothing you can't find out. Nothing.
You must take great pleasure in what a professor of mine called the glory of knowledge and knowing as much as you can about everything.
I have a reputation for sprouting totally irrelevant facts at dinner tables. Did you know that? People look at me, what's that have to do with what we're talking about? Nothing, it just popped into my head. So.
If I ever get the opportunity, I'm going to make sure I sit on your side of the table. I'm going to hear some of these interesting things.
So you can roll your eyes when I come out with some totally irrelevant fact. So.